Everyone, welcome to another Classic Movie Monday. I apologize I had to delay this video. Unfortunately, I was pretty busy over the weekend and also had to take the computer, or at least my mom had to take the computer in because there were problems with it, but now it should all be fixed and should be all caught up by the end of the day. So without further ado, for this particular Classic Movie Monday, I thought it'd be interesting to address a 1960s film that stars Lee Marvin and is one of his more famous works. And that is Point Break. I believe this was made in 1967, if I'm not mistaken. But this film is rather interesting because it explores the concept of criminals seeking revenge. In this case, Walker, who is played by Lee Marvin. And basically, it's revenge on his former partner named Reese. And you'll sort of see the reasoning behind the revenge and how Walker goes about this revenge if you choose to watch the film. And what ultimately I think ends up working to this film and why it's film's advantage and why I think it's considered one of Lee Marvin's more memorable works is the fact that the acting is very solid. And I think it captures the sort of 1960s vibe of filmmaking rather well. Because within the 1950s, film I think was a lot less risque and it wasn't as forward and trying to push the envelope in a certain direction, whereas here you sort of see that kind of 60s vibe start to sort of flow in within this film. If you watch films like The Graduate, for example, that's another film that sort of again is one of those 60s films that you can kind of see how you can sort of see the difference between the sort of styles of that era, especially when within the 60s when we see things going a little bit more on the lines of risque and pushing boundaries as far as the way in which film is stylized and whatnot. And this is clearly presented within this film. And although it has that different style and direction, it's also still relatively old in the sense that it's a lot slower paced than a lot of modern day filmmaking is. So again, it's not like the 60s really pushed that envelope, but they did kind of push the style and sort of direction of filmmaking into something that was a little bit different and I think less traditional in the 1950s. But again, they sort of kept the same kind of structure in trying to kind of draw everything out and have everything being more dialogue heavy. And ultimately, what this film I think conveys really well is that sense of thrills, and you ultimately want to know what ends up happening. There's kind of a certain amount of bizarreness to this film as well, and uncomfortableness. And it overall conveys what I think it ultimately wants to convey rather well. And in doing so, in the styling and format of this particular era of the 60s, that was designed to be a lot more experimental and actually be a little bit more risque, be a little bit more, I guess you could say, action-packed and yet a little bit also on the more bizarre side as well. So it's got an interesting blend of things, and I think that's ultimately what makes this particular Lee Marvin film actually work really well and to its advantage overall. But I think that's really all I can say about it, though, without really giving too much away. And also, it's important to note that Lee Marvin's character, Walker, does eventually come across other characters, and you'll see sort of how they play a role in the film. but I kind of don't want to really give that away because that's sort of important to the story and it's sort of spoiling it for people. So, yeah, but that's all I think I can really say about this particular film. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year, and I hope to see you on the next video. Take care. Bye.